Welcome to the Ad Expert Podcast. So, think about your website right now. You might have like 10,000 visitors today.
Right, which sounds like a massive win.
Exactly. It sounds amazing. But what if I told you that 9,000 of those people are actually costing you money? And your current analytics dashboard is basically hiding the 1,000 who actually want to buy.
Yeah, that's the terrifying reality for a lot of businesses right now.
It really is. So for today's deep dive, we are completely tearing down the old way of measuring web traffic. We're going to figure out how to maximize actual, tangible conversion value.
Which I would argue is the single most important pivot a business can make today. I mean, that outdated mental model, the one where we just, celebrate sheer volume, it's financially dangerous, especially in such a competitive digital landscape.
Oh, totally. I always picture that old model like standing at the front gate of a massive amusement park with one of those metal clickers.
Oh, yeah, the little handheld ones.
Yeah. And you just click every single time a body walks through the turnstile.
Right.
And at the end of the day, you look at the clicker and say, great, 10,000 visitors, we are killing it.
Right, but you have absolutely no idea what they did inside the park.
Exactly. You don't know if those people came to ride the expensive roller coasters and buy the VIP souvenirs, or if they literally just wanted to, use the free restrooms, drink from the water fountain, and then immediately leave.
And if you're paying to acquire the restroom users at the exact same rate you're paying to acquire the VIPs, well, that's how marketing budgets just bleed out.
Yep.
You really need a system that doesn't just count bodies, but actually evaluates intent.
Which brings us to the source material guiding our analysis today. We're looking at a pretty extensive strategic playbook from Ad Expert. They're an online marketing and web development agency.
Yeah, and we're specifically focusing on their approach to GA4 Google Analytics for Audience Intelligence, which was penned by their founder, Sam Ashrafi.
And what stands out to me immediately about this playbook is just the operational reality of where it comes from, right?
Yeah.
Like Ad Expert isn't just some theoretical software company writing white papers.
No, not at all. They are very much in the trenches of the Los Angeles market.
Right, serving that whole local ecosystem. Woodland Hills, Calabasas, Encino, Sherman Oaks.
Burbank, Van Nuys.
Exactly. They're doing the real heavy lifting of local e-commerce marketing every single day.
Led by Sam Ashrafi on the strategy side and Asan Navavati handling the hardcore SEO and professional analytics.
And they offer a really comprehensive suite of services. We're talking WordPress and Shopify web development, precise semantic copywriting, Google Ads management, local SEO.
But, and this is the crucial part, when you look at their framework, they position GA4 as the absolute anchor for all of those diverse services.
Okay, so let me challenge that premise for a second.
Sure, go for it.
Say I hire an agency to write these brilliant, highly engaging blog posts that rank #1 on Google. That organic traffic is coming in regardless of my analytics platform, right?
Yeah.
Why does the creative work or the structural web design require this highly technical tracking tool to be successful?
That's a great question because, organic traffic isn't the finish line. It's really just the starting line.
Okay.
You might successfully drive 50,000 readers to that brilliantly written blog post, but without the granular visibility that GA4 provides, you literally don't know what that traffic is doing once the reading stops.
Right, are they actually buying anything?
Exactly. Are they clicking over to a product page? Are they subscribing to an email list? Or are they just skimming the information and bouncing straight to a competitor?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sam Ashrafi's core thesis here is that GA4 isn't just a software update. It's a fundamental paradigm shift in how businesses have to view data. It basically ensures that every single hour you pay a copywriter or a developer actually yields a measurable return.
So it forces a shift from just hoping your creative work generates sales to mathematically proving that it does.
Yes, exactly.
We're filtering out the noise to find those high-value users. But, assigning a value to user behavior only matters if we actually know who is doing the behaving.
Right.
And that kind of exposes the biggest flaw in the old analytics models, doesn't it? The cross-device tracking.
Oh, the cross-device blind spot used to be massive. Under the old session-based models, the ones that relied really heavily on client-side cookies, your data was totally fragmented.
Right, because cookies are tied to a specific browser on a specific device.
Precisely. So imagine a user clicks your Google ad on their smartphone while they're riding the train to work. They browse your products, and then later that evening, they sit down at their laptop at home to actually complete the purchase.
Under the old system, that looked like two completely different people, right?
Exactly. The system logged two entirely separate users. So you have person A who clicked an ad and bought nothing.
Making the ad look like a total failure.
Right. And then you have this magical person B who just typed in your URL and bought a product out of nowhere. It artificially inflates your direct traffic and makes your mobile ad spend look terrible.
Which obviously leads to some pretty terrible budget decisions.
Totally. GA4 completely overhauls this by moving to an event-based data model combined with these advanced identity spaces. It doesn't just rely on fragile cookies anymore.
I really want to dig into that mechanism. Because if I jump from an iPhone on a cellular network to my MacBook on my home Wi-Fi, how exactly does GA4 stitch that journey together without crossing creepy privacy boundaries?
Well, it uses a hierarchy of identification. So first, if a user actually logs into your website, say they have an account on your Shopify store, GA4, uses that specific user ID to stitch the data together perfectly.
Okay, that makes sense. But what if they check out as a guest?
If they aren't logged in, GA4 relies on Google signals. So if the user is, logged into a Google account on Chrome across those devices and they have ads personalization turned on, Google can seamlessly bridge that gap.
Wow, okay. And if neither of those are an option?
Then it uses device fingerprinting and machine learning modeling to kind of fill in the blanks based on behavioral patterns.
That is a massive technical upgrade.
Yeah.
It creates a completely unified timeline of the customer journey. And because GA4 is event-based rather than session-based, it isn't just looking at, what page loaded.
Right. No, every single interaction is treated as an independent, measurable event.
A button click is an event.
Yep.
Scrolling past the 50% mark on an article is an event. Adding to a cart, removing an item, playing a video, all distinct events.
And what ad expert strongly advocates for is taking this deep behavioral data and creating highly specific custom events that are completely unique to your own conversion funnel.
Like, say, tracking if someone specifically downloaded a PDF white paper, or if they spent more than 4 minutes configuring a custom product.
Exactly. But this leads to the concept of assigning monetary values to those actions, which is where things get really strategic.
Oh, this part is fascinating. Because conversion tracking with monetary values, it fundamentally changes how you view your website.
It does. You aren't just looking at some aggregate engagement rate anymore. You analyze your historical data and you realize, okay, out of every 100 people who download that white paper, 10 of them eventually buy a $500 service.
So the math says every single download is effectively worth $50 in future revenue.
Precisely. And when you assign that $50 value to the custom event inside GA4, you give the system a real financial weight to optimize against.
Okay, but let me push back on the segmentation strategy that usually accompanies this. Because the playbook talks a lot about audience segmentation, slicing the audience into distinct groups based on these very specific behaviors.
Yeah, that's a core component.
Right. But if I'm isolating only the people who scrolled 75% down the page and downloaded the white paper, aren't I artificially shrinking my own market? Doesn't hypersegmentation run the risk of building this tiny little box and ignoring everyone outside of it?
Well, that assumes the goal of segmentation is exclusion, which is a very legacy mindset.
Interesting. How so?
In a modern algorithmic landscape, segmentation is really about teaching the system context. You are not building a tiny box to stay inside of. You're building a highly detailed profile of your absolute best customer.
So you are giving the algorithm a blueprint.
Yes. Machine learning models require data points to recognize patterns. By defining these granular segments and assigning real financial value to the events within them, you're essentially telling the advertising algorithms, hey, this specific sequence of behaviors represents a highly profitable customer.
So you're training the machine to recognize the exact traits of that VIP amusement park guest we talked about earlier.
Exactly. So it can go out into the broader internet and find 1,000 more people who exhibit those exact same behavioral traits.
It's about directing your budget efficiently, rather than just shouting your message into the void and hoping the right people hear it.
Totally. Which naturally brings us to the predictive elements of GA4. And this is where the strategy really moves from analyzing the past to actually anticipating the future.
Yeah. Ad Expert heavily leverages AI to deliver these data-driven solutions, specifically through predictive metrics.
And this is arguably the most powerful capability of the entire platform. I mean, we're no longer just tracking what users did yesterday. The AI is calculating the statistical probability of what they will do tomorrow.
I hear this concept a lot in marketing circles, and people always compare it to that old sci-fi movie Minority Report, where they predict the future before it happens.
Right, precogs.
Yeah. But I actually think a much better way to understand this mechanism is to look at it like a world-class poker player.
Oh, I like that. Expand on the poker analogy a bit.
Okay, so a professional poker player isn't psychic,
Right.
right? They can't see the future or look at the cards hidden in your hand, but they're constantly calculating the pot odds. They're looking at the tells you're giving off.
Like how much you bet or how fast you pushed your chips in.
Exactly. Or your past behavior in similar hands. The AI in GA4 is doing the exact same thing. It's looking at the micro tells of the user. Like how fast are they scrolling? Did they pause on the shipping policy page? Did they compare 3 different models?
And it compares all those micro tells against the behavior of millions of other users who historically ended up making a purchase.
Right. So it isn't reading minds. It is just calculating the mathematical probability of a win based on massive historical data sets. And it only bets your ad dollars when the statistical probability is overwhelmingly in your favor.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it, honestly. And the specific metrics GA4 offers here are profound. It calculates purchase probability, which identifies users likely to buy within the next 7 days.
Wow, just a 7-day window.
Yeah. And then it calculates churn probability, which identifies active users who are actually likely to stop visiting your site. And my favorite, it calculates predicted revenue, estimating the actual dollar amount a specific user segment might generate over a 4-week period.
That's incredible. But I mean, how much data does the system actually need to make those calculations accurate? Because you can't just launch a brand new website on a Monday and have the AI predicting the future by Tuesday, right?
Oh, absolutely not. No, the algorithms require a significant baseline to train the models. Generally speaking, GA4 requires at least 1,000 returning users who triggered a purchase condition and 1,000 who didn't within a 28-day window.
Okay, so the poker player needs to see enough hands played out to understand what a winning strategy actually looks like.
Exactly. And that highlights why the initial tracking setup is so vital. If your custom events aren't firing correctly from day one, you're feeding the poker player bad information.
And they're going to make terrible bets with your money.
Exactly. And this really brings us to the integration phase, because having incredibly accurate predictive data sitting inside your GA4 dashboard is, intellectually interesting.
But it doesn't make you any money on its own.
Right. It does absolutely nothing for your bottom line. The real leverage, and the ad expert materials are very adamant about this, is feeding this intelligence directly into the actual advertising engine.
So you have to link GA4 to Google Ads. The platforms have to talk to each other natively.
It is completely non-negotiable. Linking the accounts is what allows you to push those predictive audiences directly into your live advertising campaigns.
Let's talk about how that upgrades standard practices, like retargeting. I think most of us are familiar with basic retargeting. You look at a pair of shoes online, you don't buy them, and then that exact pair of shoes stalks you across the internet for the next 3 weeks.
Right, which is effective, but it's also kind of blunt.
Very blunt.
It's blunt because it is purely reactive. Basic retargeting triggers simply because a URL loaded. But when you power retargeting with GA4 predictive audiences, it becomes deeply strategic.
How so?
You aren't just retargeting everyone who viewed the shoe, you're only retargeting the users who viewed the shoe and who the AI identified as having a high purchase probability based on their engagement depth.
Oh, wow. So you aren't wasting money serving ads to the person who accidentally clicked the link and immediately left?
Yes, exactly.
You're reserving your budget for the person who spent 5 minutes reading the reviews, zoomed in on the product images, and checked the return policy.
You're focusing all the financial firepower right on the tipping point.
Which leads us to the mechanism I found most fascinating in the entire ad expert framework, data-driven attribution, or DDA.
Oh, yes. This is the feature that single-handedly destroys the old way of evaluating marketing performance.
Right, because in the old days, the industry basically relied on last-click attribution. Let's map out a real complex customer journey to see why that fails so badly.
Let's do it.
Say a user reads an ad expert blog post about local SEO on a Monday. They learn something new, but they don't buy anything. Then on Wednesday, they watch a 10-minute YouTube video explaining the intricacies of GA4.
Okay, they're getting educated.
Right. Finally, on Friday, they do a direct Google search, click a Google ad, and actually hire the agency. Under the old last-click model, that Friday Google ad gets 100% of the credit for the sale.
And the Monday blog post and the Wednesday video, they look like total financial failures in your reporting, even though they actually did all the heavy lifting to educate the buyer.
Exactly. And if a business owner just looks at that last click data, they will inevitably make a catastrophic decision. They're going to cut the budget for blog writing and video production, thinking only the ads work.
Which kills the top of their funnel.
Right. So how does data-driven attribution actually fix this? Like, how does the algorithm decide how to slice up the credit?
Well, data-driven attribution uses complex algorithmic modeling. It's actually often based on concepts like the Shapley value from cooperative game theory to evaluate both converting and non-converting paths.
Okay, let's break that down into plain English.
Fair enough. It basically looks at what happens when a touchpoint is missing. The algorithm analyzes thousands of user journeys, right? And it notices that when the YouTube video is part of the path, the conversion rate is, let's say, 8%.
Okay.
But when the YouTube video is absent from the path, the conversion rate drops to 2%.
Ah, I see. So the system mathematically proves that the video drastically increases the likelihood of a sale. And therefore, it assigns a high fractional credit to that video, regardless of whether it was the first, middle, or last interaction.
Exactly. It might determine that the blog gets 15% of the credit, the video gets 45%, and the final search ad gets 40%. It gives you this holistic, mathematically sound view of reality.
You actually get to see the entire recipe, not just the final ingredient thrown into the pot.
Yes.
And when Google Ads is fed this fractional data from GA4, it basically stops optimizing solely for the trapdoor at the end of the funnel. It learns which combinations of touch points to bid on to acquire the highest value customers.
But, and this is a big but, this incredible machine requires maintenance. The Ad Expert playbook is very clear that you cannot simply set this up and walk away.
Right. The digital garden has to be tended. So what does that maintenance actually look like in practice?
It requires rigorous, constant A/B testing. You absolutely cannot assume your first message is the best message. You have to test different ad headlines, entirely different landing page layouts, variations in your semantic copy.
And then you use GA4 to measure how your predictive segments react to those specific changes, right?
Exactly. Do users with a high purchase probability convert better with a long-form sales page or a short, punchy video? You have to let the data dictate the design.
You also have to monitor the average revenue per user to ensure your segments are actually spending what the system predicted they would. And there's a critical hygiene step regarding the audiences themselves, isn't there?
Yes, audience pruning. This is where a lot of campaigns leak money. If a user was in a high purchase probability segment for a specific service and they finally convert, you must have rules in place to immediately remove them from that segment.
Otherwise, you're paying to show them aggressive bottom-of-funnel ads for a product they already own.
Which is not only a massive waste of ad spend, it creates a terrible user experience that damages your brand. Data goes stale quickly, you know? The algorithm needs fresh inputs to maintain its accuracy.
So, synthesizing everything we pulled from this ad expert strategy today, the fundamental shift is really moving from passive observation to active predictive targeting.
Absolutely.
And it requires a partner who understands the deep technical mechanisms, because the setup totally dictates the success. You have to transition to event-based tracking. You have to assign real monetary values to behavioral actions to teach the machine. You have to leverage those predictive poker-playing algorithms to find the users right on the tipping point. And you must link it all natively to your advertising engine, using data-driven attribution to see the actual truth of your customer journeys.
It really is a profound evolution in how we interact with consumer behavior. But, you know, if we take a step back from the technical brilliance of it all, it does raise a rather compelling question about the future of digital commerce.
Ooh, okay. What are you thinking?
Well, we've spent this entire deep dive outlining how to construct a flawless, highly efficient machine that identifies exactly what someone wants before they even consciously articulate it.
Right. The AI calculates the odds, serves the perfect ad, and guides them down a frictionless path to purchase.
The ultimate optimization.
Yeah.
But if platforms like GA4 and the advertising engines they feed become completely flawless at predicting our desires based on our micro-behaviors, what happens to the concept of serendipity?
You mean like spontaneous discovery?
Yes. If the internet evolves into a space where algorithms only show us the things they mathematically know we are going to buy, do we risk engineering serendipity completely out of existence?
Wow. So the amusement park stops being a place where you can just wander around and stumble upon a weird, fascinating attraction you didn't know existed.
Right.
Instead, the moment you walk through that smart turnstile, you are basically strapped into a single, perfectly optimized track that takes you straight to the roller coaster the AI already knows you want to ride.
Exactly.
It is incredibly efficient for the business, obviously. But as a consumer, it might mean the end of stumbling upon something beautifully unexpected. That is a heavy, fascinating thought to leave on. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.